Welcome to another Playful Humans podcast. I'm your host, Mike Montague, and my guest this week is Lisa Zawrotny from Positively Productive, where she is a productivity and accountability coach. You can find them at positivelyproductive.com. She's also the host of a podcast, Positively Living, and you can check that out on the website as well, or wherever you're listening or watching to this. That would probably be a good place to start. But we're talking about playful humans here and how you play for a living. So how does productivity and accountability match with playfulness and improvisation? We're going to find out. Stay tuned. Lots of good stuff here today. More information at playfulhumans.com. Here we go. That's the last woohoo, which means it's time for our joke of the week. The joke of the week this week is brought to you by my thesaurus. My thesaurus is horrible, but not only that, it is also horrible. Okay. What is the easiest word to spell?
The easiest word to spell? A.
Icy. Icy and I-C-Y. Okay, do you have a joke for us?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do. I don't promise it's good, but it's going to be fun. All right, a string walks into a bar, and the bartender points to the sign. You see the policy here? We don't serve your kind here. String is so offended, stomps out. Oh, it's getting worked up. Like, can't believe it. It just starts to like tie itself up and just get really puffed and rolls back in to tell off the bartender. The bartender's like, "Aren't you the string I just told to leave?" And the string replies, "I'm afraid not."
I like that one. That one's a classic, and I appreciate you getting into it and telling it for us. So I teased the first question where I think we should start. I've already been on your podcast, so people should go check out the Positively Living podcast at positivelyproductive.com/podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. But I know how it fits, but why don't we tell everybody else how being positively productive and having an accountability coach can actually make you more playful or feel more alive and live your best life?
So, it starts, I think, with the question that you asked me, which is like, okay, so you're a productivity coach, right? Like, how do you play? Because that absolutely leads into it. So first of all, the mantra of Positively Productive: to do less, live more, and breathe easier. It means that I get to encourage my clients to do fun things like, take a quiz on what kind of potato chip would you be, and intentionally ask questions about what brings you joy. Talk to Mike and see what kind of playful human you can be, because watch cat videos, right? To de-stress. All of these things are in the name of personalized productivity, because all these things lead to better focus, more contentment, just better value of what you bring to life. That's how they connect. I think we are missing the boat on what productivity is. So actually, maybe we should whip around here and start talking about what the definition truly is and where I come from. Productivity, to me, is doing the right thing, the right time, the right way for you. This is not get more done, do, go, go, and then crash. It's what's right for you. And what's your end game? We were talking about the fact that I have, business, Positively Productive, and a podcast, Positively Living. And where are these names coming from? Well, it's because that's the end game, right? Is that you want to live a life of value, right? You want to bring something to the table, maybe leave a legacy. And all of those things only make sense if they're coming from you authentically. And at least for me, authentically means fun and having an amazing time. I love the fact that you and I are chatting here today. This is business, but it's also absolute pleasure. And I get to wear a t-shirt. I got my Chaos Coordinator t-shirt on. And it was like one of the most amazing things that I realized was that I could be absolutely ridiculous, completely silly. And it doesn't mean I'm not taking what I do seriously. I take what I do seriously. I just don't take me seriously. And the end result is so much better.
Yeah, I think there is a lot to unpack there, but we got the time.
Yeah.
So first, I would start with seconding that I think a lot of people have a misconception that being playful or positive or being silly is not productive, that those are opposites. And I always kind of tell people that play is not the opposite of work. Like sloth and sitting around and not doing anything is the opposite of work. Play is like the fun uncle of work. If you think about when you were most playful, you were probably very active. You were probably working with other people. You were probably solving puzzles and challenges and doing a lot of labor, in a lack of a better word. You're getting things done and being productive, even if you weren't being serious about it and you weren't working hard. And I think that a lot of people look at productivity and accountability the same way, and they push back on it. When we think about time management, well, you can't manage time. It's going to crank forward whether you like it or not. So for me, I think about energy management, or I think about how
Ding,
am
ding,
I
ding.
making a bigger impact? And a lot of times for me, I make the biggest impact when I'm being the most playful, silly, unique, authentic version of myself, and not when I'm trying to cram as many tasks as possible into a given set of time. And so can you talk a little bit about positive psychology and the benefits of being positive as it results to your output versus trying to fit as many things you don't like into your week or day?
Yeah, there was a book long time ago that I spotted, and I tried to remember what the name was, and it only tens, and it was this idea of you have these things languishing on your to-do list, right? And when you look at them, all of these things, the things that you procrastinate about, right? The things that are languishing on the to-do list, that task aversion comes from somewhere. And you can get really important clues as to what's going on. And it's not just, well, that's a boring task. I mean, our brains love to tell us things are boring, but it's like, it's figuring out why was that there in the first place? You know, knowing who you are, it's not just about how you work best and how you get stuff done. Although I do like getting stuff done. And you know, David Allen, I love his bend on this. It's like, I'm inherently lazy and I want to get stuff done, but I don't want to take too long doing it. Great.
Mm-hmm.
But let's back it up further. We need to start talking about why we're doing it in the first place. What is the point of this? Was this somebody else's idea? How did this get on your to-do list? Do you have one of those magical ones that like keeps getting longer and longer? Well, if you do, it might be because other people are putting stuff on there. It does go back to, I keep using the phrase end game, but that's so important because it's like, what are we trying to achieve here? Where is this coming from? When you step back and you look at like what is possible, well, then you have to start getting realistic about your bandwidth. You talked about energy management, and I was, you know, ready to jump up and quote Jeff Harry and say preach, because that's where we get our best work from. So it's a combination of things, okay? Positive psychology simply means that instead of trying to fix what's ill, right, we are trying to lean into what's good, lean into wellness, lean into the things that make us the best we can possibly be. Well, when we find those things, which, you know, for us is maybe being silly, but play doesn't always mean, you know, it's a game. Play means being in that joyful state, right? That just where you do lose track of time, where you are actually probably working harder than you realize. That's where the connection is made. And when you step back and you're like, what do I value? What do I really need to get done? Now, how can I innovate how to do it? That's what I do as a coach. We find a way where you're like, let's not worry about what everybody else is doing. Let's figure out what really needs to be on that list of yours. And then we can figure out how to do it in a way that you may actually surprisingly enjoy.
I love that. I want to highlight what you started with, because we mentioned that before we hit record too, which is a lot of people focus on the what. We always ask kids, what do they want to be when they grow up? And none of us have really just defined what success looks like, or when we can stop this crazy treadmill that we're on of trying to chase some definition of the American dream or whatever you put on as being successful. And I think the more interesting questions you mentioned are why are we doing that in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
And then the second part I heard in there too, which I like to highlight, is the how. So how we're doing things might lead to a lot more satisfaction than what we're actually doing. So I love playing games. Any chance to be behind a microphone or on stage or on video is fun for me, but how I do it is more important. If somebody gave me a task of really boring things to read, which they did when I was in radio, and I didn't have any creativity, I just had to read the weather and the sponsors and whatever promotion we had going on, that wasn't fun, even though I was doing what I thought I wanted to do. And the opposite is also true. I will do some really complicated or challenging tasks if I can do them with other people, if I can brainstorm creatively on how to solve those difficult challenges. And to me, the how is so much more important than the what. But that takes us to some other things. So one of the quotes that I hate is, find what you love and you'll never work another day in your life. I don't like that, because there are still days where we have to pay our taxes, or we're having a bad day, or we lose a client or something, and it's just not as fun as it would be if we were at our maximum enjoyment and everything was breaking our way.
Yeah.
So I'm interested what you say as a coach of how we choose between knowing this is something I don't like, it's temporary, but it's a bad day and it's a part of getting where I want to go, versus this is something I should get out of my life. It's negative, it's stress, I delegate and get out. Because I think those are the hard decisions for people. They don't really know when there's just effort to get to the next level, or we're experiencing a setback, versus this is something that is, should not be part of my life. I'm adding these roadblocks in my own way.
It's such a great question that is going to take a lot of exploration, but we'll give you the highlights here for like the next step that you can take, which is really asking questions each and every time. And some of those you built right into the question to me, which is asking that, like saying, is this something I really need to keep, like for the long haul? Paying your taxes, spoiler alert, yes. Okay, so that may be an obvious one, whereas it would be like, do I need to keep this job that I have? Do I need to keep interacting with these people in this particular way when I'm volunteering? Like each and every scenario that you have where, first, you do need to cue into the fact that it is something that doesn't light you up, because too often we just get into this rote kind of automatic state where we're like, isn't my job supposed to suck? Isn't that how it works? Am I not supposed to be hating Mondays just like Garfield? We're in solidarity with the cat. No, I'll be in solidarity about the lasagna, but not the hating Mondays. It's stepping back and asking the question, is this necessary? Is it necessary for me to be in a place and do a thing that I'm not liking? Well, maybe when it comes to family, maybe when it comes to taxes, making that distinction to start is really important. Then saying, okay, we do need to be practical. Sometimes you do have to make money in a way to support your family that you're just not digging. So then that acceptance, that changes it. We talk about, again, playful, and we are playful humans here, but it's also a playful in terms of true creativity in saying, how do we reframe this? How do we find gratitude for it? It's subsidizing my focus on the future as to where I want to go. Sometimes it can really give you relief to create a game plan, a way out. But in the interim, you say, okay, it's a choice and I'm choosing to do this. And then how do I make it the most fun possible? What can I add to it? Like you said, there are some things you had to read things a certain way. You didn't have any creativity or control right in that moment, but surrounding it, you do. So those are all asking the questions.
I love that. And you hit an interesting thing for me, which is about the phases and the timing, because I think a lot of people if you're not paying your bills and you're struggling and you have to work a job that you don't really love or is not your dream job to pay the bills, that's okay. That can be temporary. Go do that and make the most of it, and look for opportunities. And maybe you find fun and other more fulfillment outside of life, and you do it as a hobby for a while until it makes income. But I think people also make the mistake of thinking that it has to be forever, that just because you got that law degree means you have to be a lawyer for the next 40 years. And that's not true. We trick ourselves into these boxes sometimes where we think, oh, I really, like for me, I really wanted to be on the radio. I wanted to be a radio host until I got the job and was a full-time radio host. And I was like, ooh, this is not what I thought it was when I was in fifth grade. Right. I didn't know what it was like to pay bills and be in a radio studio and be on the other side of the microphone. And I think a lot of people miss that when I was in fifth grade, there was no such thing as being a YouTube star. So I picked radio instead of YouTube because that's what I thought was the cool thing. And YouTube didn't exist. But now I'm an adult and there are different choices. So I can change my mind. And I think I would love to hear what you say as a coach, and what you think maybe are some common challenges people run into, because I tend to see that one a lot. We think that just what we did yesterday or the degree we got or the job we have now means we have to keep those things for the rest of our life, when really we can start over anytime and we can improv and change. But I don't think people realize that.
And you can change your mind about changing your mind. So what you're talking about, so there's two things that come to mind here. One very quickly, we already touched upon, which is, so when you are looking to the future and thinking more about the how of like how you want to show up doing it, and not necessarily what it's going to be, and not being so specific about what it looks like, asking kids, how do you want to change the world? What kind of person do you want to be, as opposed to what do you want to be when you grow up? That's going to be your job title on your card. Well, you didn't even know what the possibilities were. So being more open to that is important. The other thing that you're talking about, and, as a coach, we work on this a lot. I started as a professional organizer. So this was a real connection to physical things, but it's more than that for us. It's mental too. And it's called the sunk cost fallacy. And that's where, right, we believe we've put so much money, and sometimes with degrees, that's for sure the case, but money and time and effort that we have literally sunk into something, that we feel this obligation, this need, this drive, this pressure to hang on to it. And can you hear, like, when I even describe it that way, it sounds desperate. And how is that going to be fun at all? Yes, I know we don't like to waste things, but it's never a waste when you've learned a lesson.
Yeah.
And sometimes you've learned what you don't want to do. And how many people have you talked to are like, are you using your degree? Well, it's a paperweight. No, I don't. It's like,
I did for a while, or there's some of the classes that I took that I do. I love that you said that too, because I think we miss out on all the skills and experience. And that if we start over now, especially for those of us in the midlife renaissance or crisis, depending on how it's hitting you and your world, is you're not starting over at 20 with no connections and no clients and no jobs or network. You're starting over with all of the skills, experience, people, and resources you've built up along the way. So it's really hard, in my opinion, to start back at zero or completely start over and waste all of that. But I feel like we need to transition now to something more fun and exciting. So I want to get to know you a little bit better and talk about what your journey was like and how you got here as a coach. Sounds like you're having a lot of fun now and you love working with clients, and you started the podcast. Were you always playful in that and approaching, or did you have to learn these lessons a hard way along the way?
I've always been goofy. I've always been joyful. I've always been, the person known for being smiley and bubbly, which, by the way, can sometimes be underestimated, but I'm like, yeah, bring it. Underestimate me. This will be fun. Right. So that was always part of me, but it wasn't always accepted. So, and I would definitely say and I had the corporate journey, I got into the corporate world in a creative way as a communications manager, Marcom manager, but there was always those limitations. And of course, I can see obviously now that that was not right. But again, it was a journey. It's part of the person that I am today. So I'm absolutely grateful for it. But I had a life experience that completely shifted everything. I was a caregiver for my mom while I had my babies. It was very unusual. My mom had Alzheimer's and I cared for her. And man, that is always challenging to talk about, especially when you want to highlight what's playful. But I think it's so important for us to think about positivity and playfulness as being part of the family of all the emotions and experiences that we have. We're not ignoring the grief and the trauma and the hurt and the frustration. We're saying how healing it can be. And I promise you that my hubby and I, the fact that we use movie quotes and music lyrics constantly, and we speak fluent sarcasm and we joke, it's what kept us together and such a great team. And this big, event in my life, when I stepped away from it, I was getting ready to go to do that like automatic thing again, go get a new job and support my family and get back to business. And something in me just said, wait, hang on. You just big life experience here and you just learned some huge lessons. Don't sweat the small stuff. Oh, it's all small stuff. What can we do differently? And I listened to that voice and I did something differently. It changed everything up. And yeah, looking at it from that logical point of view that people love to bring up all the time because they mean well, it sounds crazy to be like, okay, so you're not going back to the corporate world and you're in a financial challenge here and now you're doing what now? I started as a professional organizer because I could tell that cleaning out, clearing out, removing that clutter, creating that path toward, where you really want to go made so much sense. And the minute I walked into someone's home, I was like, oh, it's the head and the heart. If we get to that first, that is the foundation of all of it. And it needs to be joyful. And to me, joyful, playful, that's it's all there together. It's grateful too, right? That we get to be here and we get to be doing these things. Let's make the most of it. So my journey has been ever since the professional organizing into productivity coaching. And yeah, when you say I look like I love what I do, you are 100% accurate. I adore it. I wake up. I'm not saying I don't wake up groggy every morning and I'm kicking the kids out of their beds and let's go to school and cranky and all. No, all of that exists, but it also exists with a pure joy knowing the difference that I can make in people's lives.
Yeah, two things that I heard there. The first one was even through trauma and bad times, that was kind of what it was for me too, is I had a really bad time in college and after, or I guess it was during the middle that I one time had this really great day and it made me kind of wake up and be like, oh, I used to feel like this all of the time. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, this is what happy and joy feels like. I should probably move towards this than what I was currently doing to try to deal with all of those other negative things. And so I think all of the above, I love what you said. It's part of the range of emotions. I think when you try to stop feeling pain, you stop feeling pleasure as well. And so there's a lot of difficult conversations there that we don't necessarily want to get into or have time to get into. But the other side of that about doing what you love and that expression of when you walk into somebody's house, I feel like asking yourself, if you're listening to this, what does your office look like? What do your closets look like? What is your, wardrobe and personal appearance feel like? Are you joyful about that? Does that get you excited? Or is that something else that's bringing stress into your life? Because I found a lot of those are definitely connected. The head and the heart and the outward expression a lot of times reflects the inside expression. And so I found myself having to wear more colors, and I was wearing a lot of black, and I'm wearing my dark navy today, but I have plenty of color behind me today. So I can't double up and then I just look like, plaid on plaid. But yeah, I found myself having to add things and expressions and stuff that I love back in to my life because I had let too much of it drop off. Do you have any final words of advice for that? And when you're doing your coaching and accountability of common mistakes people make or lessons that you want to get out there in the world?
So one of my favorite things to bring up whenever I'm talking productivity, and I absolutely adore this because this is, if you're like, "Oh, okay, I want to do this, but I don't want to spend that much time doing it," is the 80-20 principle, right? 80% of your results will come from 20% of your efforts. Think about it this way. 80% of what you wear is probably about 20% of your closet. 80% of your income is probably about 20% roughly of your clients or your customers. And so when you talked about moving toward what works, moving toward the good, moving toward the positive, the happy days, and that's when I talk about moving toward what works and what's possible, we're leaning into that leveraging technique and saying, okay, you got a big list maybe, but look for the 20% that's like even in what's joyful for you. When we talk about self-care and finding things that bring you joy, doesn't have to be all day, every day, doesn't have to be so much in order for it to be effective. So that's what I would leave you with. There's one small step you can do today. What's something you love to do and you're like, wow, it's been weeks or months or years since I've done that. Find a way to bring it back. What's something that you could clear away that's not bringing you joy, that you're like, I'm just leaving that there because I got clutter blind to it. Try removing that, or at least setting it to the side and working on a plan. That's what I would leave you with. There's one step that you can make space for more joy and more playfulness today.
I love that Pareto principle and the 80-20 rule because it applies everywhere.
Yeah.
So looking at the stuff that really matters and is essential in your life, I think is a great lesson to end on. Once again, we're talking with Lisa. I messed it up again. I lost it. Zawrotny, Lisa Zawrotny. There we go. And she's at Positively Productive, productivity and accountability coach at positivelyproductive.com and host of the Positively Living podcast. Go check that out wherever you're listening to podcasts like this one right now. Are you ready to play a game, Lisa?
I was born ready.
All right, here we go. We're spinning the wheel. There's 10 games that it could land on, and you got Survey Says. Survey Says is the classic. We surveyed 100 people. The top 5 answers on the cards here for me. All you have to do is get 1 out of the 5 and 2 out of the 3 questions to win here. Are you ready?
Okay, let's do it.
Name a place you should never stick your finger.
Light socket.
Light socket's number 1 answer. Yeah. That's pretty easy. If you're playing the home game, nose, fire, garbage disposal, and fan also made the list there.
Yeah.
All right. Let's try this one. Name a kind of place where time seems to pass very slowly. Where does time go slowly?
Oh, the doctor's office.
Number 1 answer again. You nailed it. You're on fire. School, work, church, airport, and traffic. All right. And this one is the more difficult one. I saved it for last, but it's a great question. Name a place a school bus might take a student besides school.
Ooh, zoo. Field trip.
Zoo is on there. That is number 5. Field trip, I think, is also the zoo. But sporting event, home is the obvious answer. Museum and picnic, also other places. So you nailed it. You went 3 for 3, which means you get a free shot here. Asks or gives. So how can you help us, or how can we help you?
So wait, the question is, how can I help you?
How can we help you, or you help us?
How can I help you?
I think obviously you can help us with being productive and accountable and doing the stuff that we love and the stuff that will make us feel good about what we're doing. And I think also if people like podcasts and they like podcasts that make them feel good, then you should definitely go check out Lisa's podcast, Positively Living. But how can we help you?
Well, you know what? Play with me on Instagram because I have so much fun. We take these you think they're dry subjects, and we have so much fun with them. There's a lot of laughter, a lot of stress release, right? That's what we need. We need to stick together and be a community. So I'd love for you to be part of my community. Positively_Lisa. You can find me on Instagram.
There you go. Positively_Lisa on Instagram. It is also linked below wherever you are listening or watching to this. As always, if you want to be more playful, go to playfulhumans.com. There's a playfulness quiz you can take. You can join the community, the culture club of other playful humans trying to rediscover and remind ourselves about the power of play in adulthood. And we have a new sponsor. It's Benetix. If you have a company or you want to give away a prize of concert tickets, sporting events, anything with a ticket, maybe a theater show, you can go to playfulhumans.com/sponsors and find Benetix. They can allow you to give away a ticket that anybody can claim for any show they like. Here we go.
Don't wait for tomorrow. Live for today. Keep on chasing the sunshine and go out and play.
Go play, everybody. Hey, you did it. You made it to the end. But don't worry, there are plenty of more videos where that came from. Just click subscribe to Playful Humans to get notified about our future videos. Now, what are you still doing here? Go play.